The armed forces making absolutely clear that anybody who has an FIR against his name or is involved in any form of rioting and arson in these Agnipath protests stands no chance of recruitment into the armed forces. This seems to have shaken and woken some of the protesters up. Protests today subdued but not completely gone. What happens from here? Has the message gone through deep enough, or are these protests likely to continue? Joining me on the Newstrack, we've got with us representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, its Member of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha, Professor Rakesh Sinha. Squaring off against him from the Congress, a former Air Force pilot, Uttam Kumar Reddy, MP of the Congress Party. For a military perspective, we've got Lieutenant General RK Sawhney, former Deputy Chief of the Army Staff. Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia joins us, former Director General Military Operations. I want to go across to General Bhatia first on this very clear message going that if you're involved in arson and rioting, you will not be allowed to enroll for a position in the armed forces. Do you think that will help quell the protests, or do you think that there is a lot of confusion and concerns and therefore this stern message alone would not be enough to calm things down?
Rahul, if I understood the question correctly, firstly, there is no question of condoning the violence. It is not acceptable to anyone. It has to be condemned in all its aspects. There cannot be violence, and the violence is totally wrong, especially if you are aspiring to join the armed forces. As per the rules and regulations of recruiting, every aspirant candidate for recruitment has to get a police verification certificate of the character. So that nothing has changed. And if the police doesn't verify him, he is not accepted for recruitment. So it is, I think, in the interest of the youth not to indulge in violence. As far as other aspects are concerned, I do not have the inputs what is going on. I have just watched it on television. I'm not the expert on that. But I can talk about the Agnipath scheme. I can talk about the good, bad and ugly of the Agnipath scheme, as also the aspirations of the youth to join the armed forces, which I've seen. And they prepare for 2 to 3 years to join the armed forces, which is a matter of pride for them. It's a question of for some, it's a question of life and death, because they see 10 to 15 to 20 rallies. They go everywhere to get recruited, and they are really passionate about it. They really want to join the armed forces. And certainly, when we change the scheme, I think the youth have a reason to feel dejected, not to take to violence. I'm not saying that dejected. It would. I think this would be similar in case tomorrow, if all of a sudden you were to change the rules for joining IIT and JEE and say, okay, you will not have the exam. People who are preparing for 2 to 3 years in, let's say, the quota factory, as we call it. You change that, there would be similar results. So we have to look at the history of the people. Every Agnipath scheme should have been given a little time to sink in. I get calls from my old colleagues, old soldiers, veterans, कि साहब हमारे बच्चों का क्या होगा? Because for them it's a tradition to join the army, not only army, the same unit, the same regiment, and they are now worried as to how that will happen. Earlier they used to get priority for recruitment in the regimental centers. Will they get it or not? They're not sure. And for them it was a career. So this is not going to happen anymore with the Agnipath scheme. So they are a worried lot.
Okay, hold that thought. Let me put that question to Rakesh Sinha. General Bhatia makes an important point that even if such a reform had to be brought, it should have been given time. Notice should have been given. This is like changing IAS or JE entrance exam norms. All of a sudden, the students, their families have reason to be dejected. Doesn't condone violence, he says, but it has given them reason to feel dejected. This should have been done better, smarter, with a longer ropeway and more notice.
Rahul, there cannot be bigger travesty than this ritual of condemning violence and on the other hand legitimizing it by blaming certain schemes. We are in democracy, and democracy dialogue is the essence of democracy. And some schemes government brings. There are two kinds of decisions of the government. One decision is a coercive, that you are abolishing 10 lakh posts. Then one can understand the anger of the people, that immediately you have abolished 10 lakh posts. On the other hand, government is bringing some opportunities for the youth. And democracy, there is nothing unnatural to be disagreeing with any scheme, or someone who is coming with some certain constructive suggestions. Government has never said that nobody can protest, Nobody can give suggestions like Mr. Bhatia is saying something. So you should come with suggestions and constructive suggestions and criticism. And Narendra Modi government is open to criticism. We are prone to criticism. Right from, not only right from the formation of the government, since the inception of Jana Sangh and the RSS. So this is nothing unnatural for us. The matter of fact is that the eruption of violence, organized, pre-planned violence. This means somebody was waiting for any decision, Tom, Dick, Harry, any decision, any kind of decision, the violence would take place. They were waiting for such government decision, so thus such elements, such conspiracy must be unraveled, whether today or tomorrow. This is not a small conspiracy. That violence erupting. Now those people who participated in the agitations, now they are regretting, not due to the FIR. The most of the people who participated in the violence, you just go through their age group. They are out of the 40 and 45. Were they aspirants? How many people from the army family came and took violence, those who feeling that now they would be deprived because their fathers and forefathers were army, now they are not? So the now major question in the liberal democracy, will our democracy survive if the mandate would be abused? If the intellectual class would come with the award bapsi, then the certain fringe group will come with and burning the trains, arson.
Okay, hold that thought. Let me put that question to Uttam Kumar Reddy from the Congress party.
I'm coming. I'm ending just one sentence. And I was just listening the introductory part. Just certain leaders are saying that RSS is trying to control the army. Why are you abusing army? Why are you disgracing the country? Indian army is known all over the world for its discipline, impartiality. Even 1984 riots, when Congress party engineered riots against the innocent Sikhs, when thousands of Sikhs were killed. I was a Delhi University student. That same year I came in Delhi. I saw when army came, people clapped.
Okay, so let me put that question to UK Reddy. Some of these comments that we've seen from leaders of the Congress and from the opposition, linking the army decision with Nazism, Hitler's, calling this RSS's army. You know, as an army brat myself, I find it pretty offensive. Officers in general have taken a decision. Those who are serving right now have taken a decision. They believe this is in the best interest of the armed forces. They've come forward and defended what they've decided and why. You can't call this Nazi army or Hitler's army or linking this to the RSS. You're a former military man yourself, UK Reddy.
Okay, Rahul, like you introduced me, I'm a former Air Force fighter pilot. I flew the MiG-21s and the MiG-23s in the several frontline combat squadrons. Now let me just get back a minute to what Mr. Rakesh Sinha was saying. Firstly, this eruption of violence across the country. Firstly, we have all condemned violence. Our Honorable Congress President from a hospital bed, she has said, yes, the Congress party is against the Agnipath scheme, but we are against any violence associated with it. Now, the other thing is this, the BJP, Mr. Rakesh Sinha going on saying somebody sponsored. I am convinced it was spontaneous and there was no conspiracy, nothing. Second is, did anybody know about the Agnipath scheme earlier? Nobody knew. Rahul, I want you to know, I'm also a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Defence. No discussion ever took place on anything to do with this kind of recruitment. I must give you some figures, Rahul. This, approximately the sanctioned strength of the armed forces about 13 lakhs. They recruit about 60,000 a year, and there's been no recruitment for a couple of years because of COVID or whatever. Now there are about 1,30,000 vacancies. This year also there will be no regular recruitment. And then the Defence Ministry comes with an announcement that only Agnipath scheme, 4-year service, 6-month training and 3.5-year service will be there. There will be no more normal recruitment. And to add fuel to fire, actually the Defence Ministry did yesterday. They said there will be no more normal recruitment in the armed forces. There will be no more Jawans, airmen, sailors recruited as has been done for 70 years of independence. There will only be Agnipath scheme. I must tell you, I am alarmed as a former serviceman, somebody who has served the country with distinction, that this is not in the national security interest. Then, to tell you something about RSS. Now, Rahul, you are aware in the 8 years of Narendra Modi government, has not the BJP government saffronized our universities? Have they not you know, there's been an RSS bent in our teaching. There has not been an RSS influence everywhere. So somebody having a fear about that is justified.
How?
Now,
General,
once again.
How is it justified? If a decision is taken by men in uniform, what does this have to do with the RSS? I completely fail to understand that.
No, Rahul.
You can agree with the decision, you can disagree with it. Where does the RSS come into this decision?
No, what did I say? Because RSS has influenced many facets of our life.
Give me 30
so
seconds to
after
counter.
BJP has come in, so there is a suspicion it could be there. And let me just tell you one small thing. See, this is a political decision. Now, if the chiefs are, saying the same thing, I don't want to comment on that. But I want to tell you on record, General Navarane, who was the outgoing army chief, opposed the scheme on the grounds that it would kill regimentation in the army, that it is not good for the esprit de corps in the army. Now, see, serving military officers have their limitations. So, let us not go by that. This is purely a political decision. As Congress party, as a patriot, as a former soldier, I am convinced this is not in the country's interest.
Okay, let me put that question to Lieutenant General Sawhney, who served as the Deputy Chief of the Army. You're just hearing
Rahul,
from a former pilot. I'm just coming back to you on the RSS question, but he's made a point about the limitations of soldiers in uniform. UK Reddy says that this is a political decision thrust by the political establishment on the generals on the services chiefs who didn't have an option but to go along. You've been in critical roles in the army. Do you think that is the way it could have been, or do you think it is impossible that unless the armed forces chiefs actually believe that this was the right thing to do, there's no way they could have been forced to do this, General Sawhney?
I am absolutely with you, Rahul. First of all, I am absolutely pained at the way this whole issue has been blatantly politicized. It is a transformational change which is being contemplated by the army. And the armed forces go about it in a very, very correct manner. They must have deliberated on it for a long time. And they came out with this particular suggestion. This suggestion has come about to bring down the average age of the men, which at the moment is 32. They want to bring it to 26. And they also wanted to address the way the budget was being allocated for different aspects. There was far too much money being spent for the pay and pensions, etc., which should legitimately be going for modernization. So this is a scheme which was evolved. It has been now put into place. But the scheme has also got inbuilt flexibility. It is to be tried out, it is being tried out, and as you have seen, that the amendments to the scheme can carry on. But to accuse the armed forces of being, becoming the armed cadre for some political sense and all, it pains me. I joined the armed forces when I was 16 years old, and I retired at 60. I am proud of it. So are you, I think, because you are a son of a very bright military officer. We have a trait in the traditions of the army. This army has always stood for Naam, Namak and Nishan. Transformations take place, and whenever the transformations take place, that is a time that a lot of discussions take place. That is what is required. If they have some problems about the implementation, they can discuss it. But to politicize it, and those youngsters for whom we are very proud of, to make them into arsonists. They are destroying the, infrastructure and everything. And all sorts of abuses are being heaped on an institution which has always served the nation honorably. Is this the way to go about it?
Okay.
I am absolutely for that. No, I am saying this. Let there be an informed debate, and I am certain. I have also been briefed by the armed forces. They are open to listening to the suggestions. And 4 years are there, and they have also said that if there is any cogent suggestion, they would be open to change the various facets. But to go about and tarnish the whole army, the army leadership, I mean, I am pained and surprised.
UK Reddy, you're a military man yourself. Respond directly to Lieutenant General Sawhney. You know, he
Yes,
is pain
yes.
and anguished with the fact that these
Yeah.
charges would
So,
be leveled
okay.
No,
against
you
those
are
who are
trying to,
serving.
they are trying to put the blame, they are trying to tarnish
No, no, no,
the
no.
image of those leaders who
See,
are going to lead the nation.
General Sawhney,
I am pained
I
absolutely
also,
by
okay.
I've got a lot of
Ge-
regard for the Air Force and
General Sawhney,
the Navy. But sir, you have been a pilot of the Indian Air Force. I mean, you know that tomorrow anything happens to the nation, each and every one who is in the uniform will stand fast. We have always stood for Naam, Namak and Nishan. So kindly, the debates should continue only at the political level. And I can tell you that whatever decisions are being taken by the armed forces, they are being done after a lot of deliberation. But I don't say they are foolproof.
Okay,
There
let
has to be
Uttam Reddy
debate. Let them be
respond to your
educated
point
with it.
that even if there are changes, those changes
Okay, yeah,
can be
okay,
rung in. Don't
General,
discard
Rahul,
what's been
Rahul, let me
decided
come.
and don't cast us
Rahul.
questions on the armed forces.
Yes, Rahul, I have the highest respect. I also joined the military at the age of 16. I am also decorated. I flew in the most advanced fighter squadrons on the Indian borders. So, you know, not only tarnish, I have the highest respect for the armed forces. I have given major part of my life for the armed forces. Now, I want to tell General Sawhney one or two things, and to you. They talk about the budget. Now, by changing the system, what savings they're going to make in the pension bill is 15 years from now. What will India's budget be 15 years from now? Can we not afford an additional budget, pension budget then? That is point one. Then point two is that, you know, none of the generals are able to tell me why is it that the whole of the army recruitment process, which has worked very well, I'm sure both the generals will agree with me, that for 70 years the Indian armed forces have been the best in the world. Why is it that overnight you change the entire recruitment process, and from a whole-time career in the armed forces, you bring it down to 6 months of training and 3.5 years of service? That's it. That's the only entry that will be there into the armed forces from now on. That's what General Puri said yesterday. Now, I want to also tell you, Rahul, that what General Sawhney was saying, I agree with him that Naam, Namak, Nishan, yes, the regimentation, the great spirit that we have in the forces, that will be diluted by changing the recruitment process to what they're doing now. You know, you can't expect somebody with 3.5 years service and uncertainty after that to have the aim esprit de corps of somebody whose whole life is in the armed forces. Secondly, a person coming in the Agnipath scheme is not going to have pension, is not going to medical benefits, is not going to have health benefits.
Okay, you are questioning the commitment to defend the nation of somebody who's around for 3.5 years, for whom General Sawhney, it's only a job, versus somebody who's a lifetime soldier.
Vis-a-vis, I'm saying...
I like to tell a particular point.
Yes.
Armed forces have an amazing capacity to make a man part of their family. I want to tell Mr. Reddy that I was 19 and a half when 62 operations took place. And I can assure him that at that time, and in 65, I was a captain. The majority of the people in my unit had 2 to 3 years service. And I can tell you that my battalion lost 60 people. And most of the people who fought bravely were the ones who had only 1 year and 1.5 years service. We have the capacity to convert a chap who comes to the family, to make him feel that he is part of the regiment. So that is spirit that I think one should leave it to these professionals. They will do it. How it is to be done, how it is to be tweaked. So those are the things which required a very sane discussion, sitting down and discussing it. You see, the point is, nobody in the armed forces is saying that this is going to be pathar pe lakir. They are open to suggestions. They are, as it is in last about 2-3 days itself, some changes have taken place. And another point, 6-month training. We have trained people with about 9 months training. We have made them officers. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just not saying at all. Because basically for the arms, which are other than infantry, the crew-served weapons, like the mechanized, like the armor, like artillery, will require some more time. But I want to also tell you that when the recruits go to the battalions, and the battalions continue to train them. It's a continuous process, it never ends. I want to tell you that till the time you retire, you keep learning. Even the most senior generals of the Indian Armed Forces, marshals, the admirals, they continue to do the courses till the time they retire.
Oh, sure.
It's a continuous process.
You know,
It never stops.
Rakesh Sinha wants to
We
come in and
never
respond
stop
to the
learning.
charge levelled by the Congress MP and others in the opposition, saying that because they are militarized, because they would be imbued with a certain sense of nationalism, therefore it is more likely that they may want to join the RSS. So the RSS is basically preparing its future cadre through this process. How do you respond to this charge coming from different voices in the opposition?
Before that, I would condemn Mr. Reddy's statement that violence was spontaneous. The similar language was used in 1984 that violence was spontaneous. This is spontaneous theory in 1948, 1984, and now 2022. This is the Congress theory which is being shared by the Rashtriya Janata Dal and its allies who failed to counter the Bharatiya Janata Party inside the parliament. So extra constitutional forces and extra parliamentary forces are being used to counter the Bharatiya Janata Party in the government. Now coming to the point, RSS does not need the army, army does not need the RSS. We all are patriotic people, and army is above every organization, whether it is Jamaat-e-Islami, whether RSS, whether Naxals, army is above all these things. We never criticize army, and one should not criticize the army just for the political gain. Army is a compact body, and I am reminding Rahul, you must be aware of that when there was such a committee report, it was the Congress government who was compelling army to give the counting of the Hindus and Muslims in the army. Those people who are sitting from the armed forces, they must be knowing that. I appreciate Lieutenant General J.J. Singh, who refused to do that. That time the defense minister, led Pranab Mukherjee, and the entire Congress party, and Sonia Gandhi was hell-bent that army must be counted on the basis of religion. Army said we are one family, the only religion is a patriotism. This is the Congress culture. And the
Rakesh, this is wrong. I mean, you're taking Sonia Gandhi's name for
because
something
Rahul
which
Gandhi
is,
is being questioned by ED. Just let me complete. Rahul
right.
Gandhi is questioned by ED. Rahul and Sonia Gandhi are...
See, Rakesh, this is wrong. You're quoting things that are not facts.
They are trying to divert the attention of the people. The man who is responsible for...
This is totally wrong. You have the wrong policy you have brought in. This is not in the interest of the country. And you don't know anything about armed forces, and you're making sweeping statements.
Okay, I can't have both of you speaking over each other. This is not the way I want to run the debate. One at a time, make sense, not noise. I want to show up, just we'll do it one at a time. Both of you will get an opportunity to speak. I also want to show our viewers how some of the key voices in India Inc. reacted to the Agniveer scheme, saying there are a lot of the people who will pass out as part of this Agnipath process could be welcomed with open arms into different companies in corporate India. They've said that they support the scheme, they're promising jobs to Agniveers, but many veterans are asking, Pehle ye to batao, of the people who've retired so far, how many have you given employment to? Here's the report.
Trains cancelled. Massive traffic jams. Arson and rioting. The Agnipath storm rages on. The government, however, is standing its ground in face of all attacks from protesters and the opposition. But now the government has some backup, with India Inc. not only declaring its support for the recruitment scheme, but also promising to open up its doors to Agniveers 4 years from now. Mahindra Group Chairman Anand Mahindra said the company will recruit the capable young people trained under this scheme. The business tycoon said that with leadership, teamwork and physical training, Agniveers provide market-ready professional solutions to industry, covering the full spectrum from operations to administration and supply chain management. Not only Mahindra, many from the world of business have hailed the Agnipath scheme. TVS Motors Managing Director Sudarshan Venu believes Agniveers will play a key role in furthering economic growth and strengthening society in the coming years. Industrialist Sajjan Jindal is of the view that disciplined and educated Agniveers will be a boon to organizations. Industry bodies FICCI and ASSOCHAM have also welcomed the path-breaking decision by the government.
This would mean a right blend of youth and experience in the armed forces, and this would be a fabulous opportunity for the youth of the country to serve the nation. And once they have stepped out as Agniveers, this would become a great talent pool for the corporations like ours.
Yes.
Yeah, as CEO and MD of Hindustan Unilever, I would love to recruit trained, passionate, disciplined and skilled people.
One of the first to recognize the importance of Agniveers was industry veteran Baba Kalyani, whose company Bharat Forge tweeted that it will find a ready pool of highly motivated and disciplined resources having a sense of nationalistic fervor with a can-do spirit. The unique public-private partnership has turned the uncertainties which youth had into an ocean of opportunities, probably enough to cool the rage boiling across the nation. Meanwhile, the selection process of Agniveer kicks off from the end of this month. Bureau Report, India Today.
You've got India Inc. coming out and saying that they will recruit preferably from the Agniveer scheme. But General Bhatia, do you buy that? Because there is an existing track record. Given the fact that about half the Jawans who retire in the ex-serviceman category actually struggle to find employment, and this is across private sector, across state government, across central government, across CAPF. If it hasn't happened in the past, with new focus, are you hopeful that it will happen now?
Honestly, no, I'm not hopeful at all. Agniveer is not from Mars. They're the same recruitment base, with the same selection process, with the same training. And these are less trained actually. And you look at what has changed the terminal condition service. Once they come out, I feel they will not, it's good to promise right now, but all the industry captains, they should put out the figures as to how many have they employed till now. Even the government reservations which are done for the ex-servicemen, which are notified, the devil in the detail. The criteria is such they don't get employment. There are 300 odd ex-servicemen in Madhya Pradesh who have gone to court, I believe, saying that they are authorized this vacancies, and the vacancies, only 6 of them which are filled. So there is a gap between promises, assurances and outcomes. So I feel that we have to pass a legislation for this. If a legislation passed, it will assure the people, assure the Agniveers are coming in, assure the recruits are coming in, that they will get a job, a second opportunity, a second career, and they'll go back to the mainstream as better citizens. If the legislation is not there,
can this be legislated by law? Many veterans are now asking for it. If it hasn't happened with all these big companies, and I don't want to pick on one or two, if it hasn't happened in all these years, General Bhatia and many others wonder, what's the guarantee it will happen again? Abhi to, they're saying all of this on camera, but later they could turn.
We are a society which is based on trust. If you will start mistrusting everybody and every individual...
No, but your past track record is a good indicator of what might happen in the future.
Look, this is a different matter. Mr. Mahendra has declared, and many such companies have come out, when there are 4 years training, and after retirement, many soldiers come and join they are much in demand. They join the different private sector job. So this is nothing unnatural, and I think the initiative is coming from their side. The crux of the matter is that this is the best opportunity which Prime Minister has provided. Whenever some reforms comes, there is a stiff opposition. You just see in 1980s, most of the army generals must be knowing that. In 1980s, most of the NATO countries have introduced reforms based on our reform. We are very late in reforming our armed forces. The requirement of the armed forces of technology, the manpower and the weapons, it is not decided by the political executives. They come with their internal discussions and come with to the political executives. And all decision democracy is taken by the political executive. Even in 1971 war, which Indira Gandhi was afraid to sign, but it was ultimately she took the decision, she took all the credit. It was we all know the army generals forced her to go into the war.
You can, Reddy, respond to the point that Rakesh Sinha is making, that you must have faith if the likes of Anand Mahindra, Baba Kalyani are saying that they will hire in the future, therefore don't disregard their public promise.
Okay, Rahul, firstly, Mr. Rakesh Sinha must, understand that the 1971 war was largely due to Mrs. Indira Gandhi's stellar leadership and is being recognized around the world. So you please first learn that.
No,
Secondly,
not at
Rahul, after I left the service,
Army General
you finish your turn. No. Arre, what do you know about the military for you to talk? Please don't talk about this. Rahul, after leaving the military service, I've been an MLA and a minister and an MP for many terms now. Hundreds and thousands of ex-servicemen come to me, young. They retire at about 32, 33, 34, 35. Very fit, very well qualified, very well trained. To get them a job somewhere, to put in a word somewhere. And these same corporates and these same state governments and these same central police forces have not been doing anything so far. For 8 years, let Mr. Anurag Thakur or Mr. Scindia or the Home Minister, let them tell how many ex-servicemen have they recruited. Why haven't they recruited? Why haven't the BJP chief ministers recruited ex-servicemen for the last 8 years when they've been in power? So, Rahul, what has happened is, I must tell you the inside information. Defense Ministry, bigwigs, called up these corporate, owners or MDs or whatever and said, please give statements in support of Agnipath. Please give statements that we will recruit them. So they have given statements. Now, why don't they reply that? Why did they not recruit?
General Sawhney, final words from you. Do you buy these promises? Because, when I was... One second, sir.
5 seconds. Give me
1
second.
second.
Give me just 5 seconds.
Okay, go on, Rakesh Sinha.
Give me just one statement. I am surprised that the way he is talking, that he was corporate houses were brought and they were said to give this statement. It seems that he was a witness in the.
The General Puri gave a statement like that. The Defense Ministry gave a statement.
Why are you disbelieving?
The Defense Ministry gave a statement that they have approached corporate heads to give statements.
Don't mistrust your business captains. Don't mistrust that.
Okay.
They are the
General
great contributors
Sawhney,
in the national economy.
It is an open
I'm only going by the track record of the last
people, when they retire from the armed forces,
ex-servicemen.
oftentimes find it difficult to find gainful employment. In countries like the United States, I was at the Harvard Business School this summer, there are veterans who get admission on priority. You're building their life skills, management skills, so that once they graduate out of a school like HPS, they are qualified for success in the corporate world. That is meaningful affirmation. It's not a Hawa mein promise, but meaningful affirmation. Do you buy these promises we are hearing from India Inc.? Do you believe that there will be gainful employment for some of these Jawans after they retire after 4 years?
I think if these people take into account the young age and the enthusiasm of these boys, they would be the gainers. But whether they would, actually do whatever they have promised is something we have to watch. But the fact that they have promised and given these openly on the media will mean that they will not be able to back out of these, and let's trust them. Because, for example, unless and until you get now the feeling, of course, at the moment, they haven't employed many ex-servicemen, that's a fact. But the point is, they always give the excuse of their being of a certain age which they cannot use. But that excuse goes away as far as these Agnipaths are concerned. These boys will be very young, enthusiastic, and competent and disciplined. And now that they have promised it, let's hold them at their promise. Because I think
I just wish to say this in conclusion, just making that promise means nothing. In corporate India, to succeed, you need the right skill set. You need the right education, you need the right qualifications, you need the right technical aptitude to be able to succeed in CV Street. Just 4 years, for example, of being in the infantry may not necessarily qualify you for a meaningful job in India Inc. Therefore, skilling is critical. Going to top schools, learning new trades is important. Otherwise, this promise today may ultimately not lead to very much unless you've got the skills to be able to succeed in this new job. We will keep tracking what happens from here. For the time being, General Sawhney, General Bhatia, Uttam, Reddy and Rakesh Sinha for joining me on the Newstrack. Thank you very much.